I bought this generator just about 4 years ago. It's a 3800 running watts, dual fuel, propane and gasoline with electric start. And I bought it because I wanted something with a pretty reasonable output, but 110 only, so that and with the RV outlet, so that I could plug my camper directly into it and be able to get its full power output. So I've toted this thing around all over the country on several long distance trips, and it's a good idea to start it about every month or so, let it run for 30 minutes or an hour, something like that, just to keep the battery topped off and to cycle fresh fuel through it, especially if you're running it on gasoline, which I usually do. I ran it on propane a few times when I first got it, but since the first year I had it, I have not run it on propane. It doesn't output as much on propane, for one thing, and it's more efficient on gasoline. So I use non-ethanol gasoline, by the way, and I highly recommend that. I don't recommend putting any of that ethanol-laced stuff in it, because it'll gum up the carburetor. It'll cause your tank to rust. It just has all kinds of problems. And I wish they didn't even put it in gasoline, because it's overall a bad thing. But anyway, I buy non-ethanol gas to use in all of my small engines, including my motorcycles. And what I do is I actually add a little bit of TCW3 Marine 2-cycle oil to it. Just a small amount, probably not even 100 to 1. Just a couple of ounces in a 5-gallon can. So anyway, we had a power outage last week, and the electricity went off on Friday at about noon, and it stayed off for just about 24 hours. It came back on approximately noon Saturday, and the battery was completely dead on this, and so I knew I needed to run it, so I ran it. In fact, I actually I was out for a motorcycle ride, and when it came back on Saturday, and my wife texted me and let me know when the electricity came back on. But I had the refrigerator running on it, and I actually ran this just about 27 hours non-stop. And I did something you're not supposed to do. I opened it and added fuel to it while it was running, and that's not a recommended thing, because you could spill it and go up in flames or whatever. But I didn't want to stop it and start it back, and so I carefully added fuel to it while it was running. And one thing I noticed, I ran an air conditioner on it, I ran lights on it, I ran our TV. I did not run the network on it because I had that running on my solar system. But I ran just the refrigerator overnight on it, and which it's a pretty good size refrigerator. And I was surprised, because I got up in the middle of the night and topped off the fuel, and then I topped it off again in the morning, and so it took 1 gallon to fill it from full back to full again, from starting at full when I got up in the middle of the night and filling it back to full when I got up in the morning. It was 6 hours, and it took exactly a gallon to make it full again. So that means that powering the refrigerator only, it ran 6 hours on 1 gallon of gas. That was pretty good. Pretty efficient. I also noticed that I didn't check exactly how much gas was in it when I shut it off, but I did look in there to see, if it still had a fair amount. I haven't filled it back up, in other words, so I don't know exactly how much gas it used during the time that I was gone. And the time, since I got up in the morning and topped it off and everything. But I did notice that I was gone for 7 hours, or at least, I don't guess I was gone for 7 hours, but it was 7 hours between the time that I topped it off and the time that I shut it down. And so after 7 hours of running the refrigerator, it still has what appears to be about a half a tank of gas. So that's pretty good. Well, 7 hours, and it ran 6 hours before on 1 gallon, so it probably won't take much over a gallon to fill it back up. But anyway, I also noticed, I checked it a few hours later, and when I started it on Friday, the battery was completely dead. I mean, when I flipped this thing on, the pilot light didn't even come on. There's a pilot light in this switch, that's what I'm talking about. It didn't even come on. So, it had zero power in the battery, zero charge. And I checked it a few hours after I shut it down, and the battery had enough charge in it to actually operate the starter. But when I first started it, I had to use the full start, and I also had to dribble a little bit of fuel into the air intake to prime it in order to get it to start. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the fuel on, and I'm going to see if the electric starter will work, because it's been 3 days now since I shut it down. So I'm going to see if the battery still has enough charge to function it, and see if it'll start. Hopefully I won't have to prime it. I have a slightly smaller one. I have one that's, I think it's 3,500 watts, and it's pull start only. I've had it for quite a bit longer than this one. And it's got a 196cc engine. This one has a 224. And I don't think I really noticed that before, but 224 is that's probably a Ducar block. One of these days I'll need to look closer at it and see, maybe even today. Because what I'm planning on doing today is run it long enough to warm it up, and then go ahead and change the oil. And I always, when I shut it down, I turn off all the loads that are connected to it, disconnect it, and then turn off the fuel and let it run out of fuel. You don't want to let it run out of fuel with a load on it, but because it's bad for whatever you're powering, and it's also bad for the generator. It can cause it to lose its lose its field excitation so that you have to flash the field to get it to generate again. And that's what a lot of people do. They'll have a generator and it'll stop generating. It still runs, but it won't produce any electricity. And at that point, they scrap it or whatever, you know, because it would cost too much, or they figure it would cost too much to get it fixed. And it would, you know, paying somebody to do it. But I think the most common cause of that, like I said, is allowing it to run out of gas with a load on it, or shutting it down with a load on it in some other way. And that's a very bad thing to do. But you can flash the field and get it working again. And maybe one of these days I'll show how to do that. But I like to turn the fuel on and give it a couple of minutes to run down into the carburetor. And it's actually a good idea when you do shut it down. And like I said, when I shut it down, I disconnect all the load from it, and then I turn the fuel valve off and let it run out of fuel in the carburetor. And it's a good idea to go ahead, once it cools down, and open the bowl drain on the carburetor, and any remnant of fuel that's in it, let it drain out. So I haven't done that, but I think I'm probably going to start doing it, although I haven't had any problem with just letting it. I usually, like I said, I put the TCW3 in the gas, use non-ethanol gas, and I like to store it completely full so that there's no airspace, or very minimal airspace in the tank. And I've had good results from that. So anyway, let's start it and see if it'll start. See if it'll start with the electric starter and without priming. Hopefully it will. And it did. I will provide a link in the video description if you want to get one of these. This one's 4 years old, and man, it's a great generator. And that is the original battery too, by the way. So even though it went completely dead and stayed dead for a few months, you see, once I got a charge on it just from running it, it charged it back up and it works again. So I have nothing bad to say about this generator. Thanks for watching.